It's a little song we used to sing, "This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me." Because the world didn't give it to me, the world can't take it away. It helps us to be able to handle all of the vicissitudes of life. And when the mistaken appearances, the temporary nature of things that we see with our eyes and that we hear, that we feel on some level as if that is all there is to it. And so I want to kind of vector off a little bit for today's um, Dhamma talk, or this is a class. This is a class today. It says, all of you disciples present here are very kind-hearted and have a very deep foundation in Buddha Dhamma. With respect to worldly matters, at the very least, you are people who benefit society. So today, all of you are sitting here together, and this is a Dhamma joy resulting from the coming together of good karmic conditions. This is your karmic reward of good fortune. Among all of you who are present, there are human beings and there are also other beings. However, none of you know about what a human being is all about or what exactly the world is all about. That is because you have fallen into confusion. And being confused, you do not understand what the universe is all about, what relationship all these things have with people, why living beings exist, why you exist, why all of these life forms and nature are vividly right there in front of us, what the interrelationship of everything is, what you are all about, and what the absolute truth is regarding living beings, regarding mind, regarding Buddha, and regarding the universe. And after you disciples completely finish listening to me impart the Dhamma to you, you will understand what such things are and why there is impermanence that entails continual births and deaths, and why there is a fundamental nature that was not born and does not die. Furthermore, you will understand that by relying on Dharma, we are totally capable of transforming the sufferings of life and death into the happiness of neither arising nor ceasing. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the interrelationship between the various Buddhist teachings. We take it as a doctrine, and because we need some languaging to kind of understand concepts, to be able to perceive something not with our two human eyes, but for the to allow a movement between the phenomenal world that we see and understand and think we know, and to an understanding of how the whole universe comes together. And there's got to be some words for this, and these words don't fully tell the story, but they at least get us looking over in that direction. Look over there and go that way, and you'll be able to perceive, to know something beyond what you can gain an understanding of just through words. There will be a knowing that comes because you are part of that. You are part of that cosmos. You're part of the whole universe. And because you're disconnected because of false appearances, you can't perceive the wholeness of a thing. Imagine what it would be like if you never took a math class, and if you never took a biology class, and if you never took a history class, and if you never took a geography class. It would be very difficult for you to piece this world together in a certain way. You'd have no frame of reference. If you would have no, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it is so much easier when we have a frame of reference, some kind of learning to understand situationally where we are. It's like trying to travel somewhere, but you can't read a map, and if you could read the map, you have no reference for where you are on the map or where the destination is you're trying to get to. I mean, you might end up there, but it would be extremely difficult. It would be so much easier if you had a map, if you knew how to read a map, if you had a reference point for where you are right now, and a reference point for where your destination is. It would be good if you knew the directionally east from west, from north from south. It would be good if you had this kind of basic information that could help you on your journey. So I'm wondering today, how many of us have any understanding, um, and this is not so much about the interrelationship between the Buddhist teachings like the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and karma and rebirth and what non-self is and the stages of awakening and the different jhanas. I mean, all of those are fundamental teachings that you really um, to make sure progress on the path, you need to know some of these. Notice I didn't mention meditation. I didn't mention meditation because meditation is never set apart as a teaching unto itself. It is never, ever, ever. Neither is mindfulness. They're always attached to something. So we're mindful of something. And meditation, when it is defined, is not sitting in a yoga position going Om Shanti Shanti. It's something entirely different, and it's a state that we actually enter into so that we can perceive and pass through these barriers, these limiting barriers that we have to keep us in a state of confusion. And so if we try to make that something, that stands alone without understanding the context in which it was developed, we will never reach fruition with with that meditation practice, if you want to call it. We'll never come to the fullness of it, nor will we receive the benefits of the direct knowing that comes from it, because we haven't even understood what it is, and we don't know where it is on the map, and we don't know where we are in relationship to it, and we don't know where it actually leads. And so if I get enough time, I will talk about connecting those dots a little bit. But today I wanted to start at a whole different place, if I can read my handwriting. Wow. And then you can tell I was excited about it, right? Because I'm trying to stay on this seat right here. And it's not even anything that I didn't know, but sometimes it's so good when you remind yourself of something. It kind of puts everything back in perspective. And so I was doing my mandala offering, and it was a short thing that we say about the mandala, and we offer it up and all of that, right? But I was sitting here wondering how many people have that mandala offering and do it and don't even know what it means, don't know the significance of it. It was just they were given that, and it was some nice words that we say, a nice mantra we say, and a mudra that we do, and and we think we're doing some spiritual practice, right? But I would call that spiritual mumbo jumbo if we don't know what it means, if it has no meaning for us, if we can't penetrate into the essence of it. And so when we talk about Mount Sumeru and all of this, we're not talking about some place in the east. That's not it at all. So I would like to share a little bit about the 31 planes of existence a little bit today. Knowing about the 31 planes doesn't take you to them. It doesn't give you any entitlement of a seat in their various kingdoms. It doesn't. It just provides some information so that you know how, or you have like a bigger picture, so that you can find yourself on the map, so that you can have an aspiration for something. If you let's say that when we started as children and we did little chores around the house, well, maybe you all got paid for doing chores, but we didn't get paid. Our pay was to be able to stay there, so we didn't get paid for doing chores around the house. When we decided we wanted to get paid for our work, then we went and got a little part-time job hustling newspapers, soda bottles, selling ice cream, stuff like that, and made our own money. We couldn't come and ask our parents for money because we had to have my parents. And so, but we started to recognize that effort, that work has a value. It has a monetary value, and 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 as you go through your life, then you are evaluating your work or your efforts again, and ascribing a value to it for yourself, for others. And when you all don't agree, you leave and you go someplace else where you're more in agreement as to what the value of that work is. So if we are trying to attain nirvana, then we have to know the value of nirvana. We have to know the difference between nirvana as a realm and other realms. That's like the difference between working for your parents, the ones that don't pay you like mine, working for your parents and working for an employer. I mean, there's a difference. And so I want us to have some idea of these planes so that we can propel ourselves towards something that really exists. Now, you might say, well, how do you know that they exist? Well, I know that this plane exists because I'm in it. And I know other planes exist because I've been in them. And once you've been in them, it doesn't matter if somebody says, well, that's like saying, how do you know that this life is a dream or that you're really awake? You want to play all of those kind of mind games, but we're sure we are awake in the world, and that when we go to sleep, that we're asleep. We're pretty sure about that, whether we want to get into an argument about it or wax philosophical about it or not. And it's the same way with this. So as you are gliding, as you're moving in different spaces of place and time, you know it, whether you can show it to other people, whether you can give a scientific basis for it or not, whether you can convince anybody or not. And that's why I said, don't even talk about it. If it's like the frog and the fish, and the frog hops out of the pond and hops around land for a while, and he comes back. And the fish says, hey, where you been? He said, I've been up on the land. And the fish says, what's that? No, because the fish couldn't do that. So the fish had no frame of reference for it. And that's why it's not really useful to try to convince people of something that they have no frame of reference for. But if we set up some hypothesis for something that might be true, if it might be true, then you might have an opportunity to discover it for yourself, And so I want to share some of this because it might be true, and you might have an opportunity to discover some of it for yourself. And for that which you have discovered as useful and meaningful in your life, that which helps you get through every day here in this world that has some value for you, knowing what it's couched in, knowing the whole scope of the teaching might arouse some confidence in you that would allow you to bypass the limits of what you already know and accept as true, to discover what else might be true. And so that's why I want to talk about the 31 planes of existence. Because we say little things, but if we don't know where we're going, how will we know when we get there? So our science has been developing, continually. And a lot of the science that we have right now is still sort of based on a linear medieval model. Or at least when I was in school, I've learned so much since I got out of school, actually so much recently. And I'm just really excited for the young people of today and tomorrow, because so much more has come to our understanding than what I learned in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grades. That's when we took history and we took geography and we took, all of these kinds of things. Once I got in college, it got specific towards career making. But that 7th to 12th grade kind of helped lay a framework for this world that I live in and how I understand it. And because some of us haven't studied anything since then, that's why we're like a little limited in our capacity, to grasp certain things. But I feel like I'm getting younger every day, not physically, but mentally, I'm getting younger every day because I'm opening up more to just what has been understood or discovered since the time I was in high school, and so I have more respect for young people than I did before. I have more respect for them because what they're learning in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade is what you had to specialize in college. And they're getting it. I mean, even in elementary school. So I have a lot of respect for them. But these planes of existence that I want to talk about, from the Buddhist cosmological perspective, it's like the difference of a photograph of me, which is what, 2-dimensional? Is that 2-dimensional? I've been out of school a long time, right? Okay, so like having a photograph of me, 2-dimensional, but me sitting here, I'm what? I'm 3-dimensional, just 1-dimensional more, right? Between 2 and 3. But it's the difference of a photograph and a real live living human being. That's big. So dimensions have great capacity. So just hold that in mind. Just the difference between 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. So in the Buddhist cosmology, it has different ways of explaining the nature of the universe. One way is it talks about the physical nature of the universe, and it calls Mount Sumeru the center of the world systems. The center of the world system. So it doesn't mean that this is Mount Sumeru is the center of the world and here's the world all around like Mount Sumeru. But it is a play on words to specify that there are all these different world systems, and there is a central system by which they all function. And they differ in detail, and they differ in composition, in not just physical composition, but let's just start with the physical nature. So that it differs in detail, this cosmology, this Buddhist cosmology, it differs in detail from the current scientific models, but it is more akin to the current scientific model than it was through the teachings of Aristotle and the medieval linear linear teachings. So we're closer now to understanding the concept of Mount Sumeru being the center of the world systems of the universe than we have ever been. So we're our understanding today, which is why I have great hope for young people, because they can get some of these concepts that are difficult for us because we were products, of, for the most part, or at least me, of more medieval linear teachings than, because they didn't have out in the common public any quantum teachings and stuff like that back there in the 50s, when I was in the early 60s when I was in junior high and senior high school. And so that's why young people can grasp some of these things a little bit better than we can. But we can identify with its principles. The one thing that we can identify with the most is during the medieval times, we were the center of the universe. It's hard for us to get out of the notion that we are, but we are not the center of the universe. I mean, like we're microscopic compared to the vastness of the universe, and even our world, the Earth and its atmosphere and its surrounding planetary structures that create our solar system is just one of kabillions within the I don't know the Milky Way galaxy, that is just one galaxy within kabillions of. I mean, so it just gets so vast that we can't even fathom it. But just think that, and even before the time of the Buddha in India, they had these kinds of concepts. So you can actually see like the circular motion of things. What we think we're just discovering now is just coming back around again. And it will be lost again, and it'll come back around again, But who knows where we will be at any particular time within samsara, So I'm trying to catch whatever's here this time while I'm here. So it talks about that kind of physical structure of the cosmos or the universe. But then they have a cosmological aspect or origin. And this is a concept of beginningless time. So when we're talking about black holes and we're talking about all of this science that I can't even explain to you, I read it, I get scientific journals now, because the scientific journals help me paint a little more of a concrete picture around, or help me sustain in the midst of my small-mindedness. It helps me sustain notions that I embrace from my Buddhist, I could say, theological, awareness. It helps me to be able to hold fast to it and not say that's theology, this is reality. But it helps me to bring them together in a certain way that what I believe also has a basis in today's science, so that I can hold fast to it and keep peering until something adjusts in my mind, that has been conditioned by other things I've already been taught that have been debunked or not necessarily true, or bigger than how I understood them or how they were relayed to me or how we knew them. That had so many missing holes, and so there's a great coming together for us in this time of new scientific discoveries that blend with certain principles and understandings of the Buddhist concept of the universe and our role in it and our place in it and what its compositional quality is. And we're using words and terms that are hard for us to understand, like beginningless time, because we can understand beginning. We can understand the start of something, but can we really? How beginningless time is beginning to make more sense to me than in the beginning, because what came before the beginning? What caused the beginning to begin? So I look at how we use words and concepts, but if we really thought it through, they don't really make sense to us either. So when we think about the terms, and I have a notion of a beginning, I have a notion of a creator who created a beginning, but I don't know where the creator of the beginning came from, so where that beginning was. And so I'm still at beginninglessness. And so it helps me to not hold so tightly, so firmly to the arguments that I have that keep me comfortable in what I have already glimpsed a bit of, and I can hold to that in part, but I can't hold to that completely, because if I really examine it, I got holes in that too. And so it helps me to be open to receive something else. And then not only that, I recognize that a lot of people just have no respect for my respect for in the beginning. They have no respect for my respect for, say, a creator or creator God. They have no respect for that at all. But yet these are people I consider intelligent. These are people that I love. These are people that I think have a pretty good mind. It's just they don't get this part. And so we can start to see that we can have a view, but we really are limited in our capacity to really make a firm argument for our view beyond it's just something that based on who I am, how I am, what I am, and why I am, just based on those things, which I can't tell you how any of that came about, who I am, why I am, what I am, and how I am. It's just I know I am. And based on the information and experiences that have come to me, I have crafted a view of what life is, how life is, where it came from, and how it exists and how it will cease to be. And however many people there are in this world, that's how many views there are. Not only people, but other beings, unless I hold to the notion there's no higher being than a human being, So like we don't want to talk about extraterrestrials, anybody outside of this scope. We don't want to talk about any kind of heavenly beings, or we don't want to talk about, the only other beings that we will talk about are ones that we can see, like animals, like insects, Although we do know now that we have a limited, even just a limited visual bandwidth, that if we had a different bandwidth, that we could see other things, and we know that, but like we don't want to really think about that too much because we don't really want to be coming into contact with what those other people call ghosts or angels or, or demons or, we're just like our little limited view because I feel safe with that. And so we spend our whole life missing the boat because we're trying to have the protection and the security that not knowing provides. And that's a little amount. But yet we say we want to be enlightened and we want to wake up. Oh. So it talks about the physical nature of the universe, these planes of existence. And then it talks about a cosmological origin, which is beginningless time. And yet, once it comes into existence, there is an ending of the present phenomena, and it will dissolve, but there will be the arising of new phenomena. And it will have its time of abiding, and it will pass, away. Then it talks about the classifications of beings that live in these different physicalities of the world systems. It gets really deep. It goes from 2D to 3D to 5D to, and it just keeps stacking. I never forget, I saw that movie Contact, and when, she had that they had that 13-second of where they like just dropped off. That was when she had that experience with the being who presented as her father so that they could have a conversation. And yes. The line in that movie, it should have sent a poet. Yes, yes, because it took a different language. They didn't have a language, but something occurred and they were in a different realm, a different space. So they just covered that up like it never happened because they didn't know what to do with it. But and so that's what we tend to do with information that we cannot fit into our worldview. We like just discount it. We can't like just leave it there, or we create two separate things. That's why we call, we have this notion of living in the real world, and then we also have sort of our spiritual take on things. But actually, the two don't come together. We just have our little spiritual corner, and then we have our real world corner. And we take a few snippets from this to try to make this over here better. And this takes a long time. This is a year's lesson. And we're going to cover it in about 4 classes or 5 classes, because I just want to cover a little bit of it to expand our acceptance, perhaps a little bit more. So it talks about past world systems, present world systems, and future world systems. Our science, I don't think our science goes into that yet about future world systems. We just have one world system that we're trying to unravel and understand right now. Mostly because it takes a mind of a Buddha to have the capacity to understand it, like in that world, in that way. Then there's the discussion of the various beings that inhabit the cosmos, that inhabit these different realms of existence, that have different kinds of composition. Right? And they're called Gatis, G-A-T-I, Gatis. And they are, and that means destinies of rebirth. So beings, samsara is not a place, like we talk about getting out of samsara. So how many thought samsara was a place? Anybody? Come on now. When we talk about getting out of samsara, how many relate to samsara as a place, even if it's here?
I think originally I had that concept that samsara is the world right here that I live in as this being, and then over time you realize that that's what state versus but
Okay, so that's better. That's closer to understandable. But rather than a state, because I'd like to confine states to something else, you might think of samsara as a process of rebirth, cycling over and over and over and over and over. So it's a cycle or a process of rebirth. That's what samsara, and through Buddhist cosmology, that's what samsara is. And that rebirth is conditioned by something, by three things. That's by our and speech, our thoughts, actions, speech. Right. So our actions are only are all that we have, and based on those, there is the reappearance in a state suitable for that kind of mind stream. Okay. A state in this sense means a type of body. And so it says that's why some of us are humans and some of us are animals and some of us are insects and some are ghosts and some are demons and some are angels or devas and some are gods and some are, and it's like that. And some, well, let's say we do good things and we do not good things. And so because we do good things and we do not good things, everything that we do has an effect or has a result. That result co-arises with the act when we actually instigate something, the fruit of it is co-arising right then. It just may not appear in the outer world at that moment, but the moment you do it, its effect is co-arising. So it's so it's no way to separate the two. There's no way to separate the two. And I mean, if we really got that, I know we don't really get it because we're always making an excuse for ourselves that I'll fix it. I'll take care of it later. I'll work on that, but if we really recognize that the fruit of it co-arises with the actual action and the moment it is undertaken, or the words in the moment that they are spoken, or the thoughts in the moment that we look at them and grasp them as our own, then we do better at what we think, say, and do. But because we don't really connect the effect with the cause, we don't have quite as much motivation, But that has to do with the karmic force that we are under. So if you don't understand the karmic force, then you can't really understand why people do some of the things that they do or why they don't do. If you can do a particular thing, you can't understand why another person can't do it. If I can do it, they can do it. If you can't do it, it's hard for you to understand how another person can do it because we sit at the seat of our own universe, our own world. And so we view everything from where we sit at the center. But if we could accept that we, to start with, are on the periphery, it would allow us to give our seat of first place, to give our seat of preference up. And we could begin to find an order to the universe. So everything to me is like perfectly in order, according to causality, to cause and condition. And because I can accept that as a truth, when things happen, although there can be a feeling that relates to what is occurring, whether it's something that brings happiness or something that brings sadness, because I understand causality, it allows me to allow the present moment. And so our energy can be directed in ways other than utter despondency over what I see or what I hear. I can't tell you how many times I tried to keep my daughter from coming down here. I'm like, we're neighbors helping neighbors. We don't need other people to come because it's already a lot of us walking around right now because we can't do too much, but help somebody, So don't come. Stay off the road because they need the roads to bring in heavy duty equipment and people who can really fix something. You know how to get my lights back on. If you don't come. So I just get, but Mom, the pictures, I know, I understand. I said, you're looking at the pictures and we're like living here. So I understand, but I had to keep talking every day. Joe would come and charge my phone, and I get all this string of texts from the whole family want to come, and I'm saying, don't come. And so there is once one understands what is happening, then there's not a chaos. Inwardly, there's not a chaos. And that allows you to be with circumstances. It was harder for me to accept the limitation that I'm physically kaput, because I've been the first one out, like 10 years ago even, But every time I thought about getting up, my leg would start hurting, my back would start, and I knew that I'd be there trying to hand out food, and I need somebody to go try to find me a chair so I can sit down, and I'd become more in the way than I would be helpful. And so that's one for me of the scourge of old age. No, it's not getting old. It's like not being able to be as useful in a way that you desire to be useful. That was hurtful for me, to have to depend on somebody to come and do things for me, to have to depend on somebody to come and get a wet rug out of my basement because I can't lift it. To have to, and so we're all looking at different things that we need to look at to help us not get out of this world in our mind. That's not what this is for. This is to be able to be purely in the world and see it all just as it is, and yet not be moved by it because we understand the true nature of this existence. It's going to get better. This is just the groundwork. So it talks about the 5, and then later it became 6 gatis. And these gatis are destinations of rebirth. And one is, we call it the hell realm because this is sort of like we were indoctrinated in Christianity, and they call it hell. But it's actually called the worlds of misery, fire, and cruelty. Now we understand cruelty in this world, and we say, well, I don't believe in hell, as if to say there could be no other realm that could have beings who are more cruel than humans. But if we can imagine how cruel, cruel, how cruel humans can be, we're not as the most cruel beings. They're beings who can be far more cruel than us, who create. Like if we look back at the in the medieval times, and they built these chambers of torture. I mean, things that we don't even do today that they built back there during those times. They just thought of ways to hurt people, you know, and we're human beings who thought of that. That's not the most cruel. There are worlds with beings who can even be more cruel than that, and those are the worlds of misery, fire, and cruelty. And they have worlds for the pettas. Pettas are hungry ghosts, or we call them nightshades who sit outside the door. They have a different physical composition that's not gross like this, but they exist, but they're made of something else, and that's the petta world. Then we have the animal world, we have the human world, we have the deva world and the lower end. So there are the fallen devas, and I'll tell you what constitutes their delight would be the asuras. Uh, and then you have and so because the asuras are fallen, they're heading downward rather than upward. In the capacity of goodness, they're ranked lower than humans, although their capacities are stronger than humans. You know, but because in terms of moving towards or away from goodness, they rank below us than humans, because we have the capacity to move upward. Uh, and then you have the devas, and at the top end of the devas would be the god realms, and then and that's the system. That's the system of the conditioned world. But then you have the unconditioned. So the pure lands then would be at the top of the conditions. In case anybody's wondering, like where the pure lands are, the pure lands are not nibbana. The pure lands are at the top of the conditioned universe. So, but then you have nibbana or nirvana, which is not a part of the conditioned universe at all. And so where we're going, samsara then conceivably goes through all of these other realms in varying cycles according to the thoughts, the speech, and the action of beings, right? So you can imagine being a certain kind of animal that lives on instinct and constant killing, how long it takes to get out of that cycle. How long it takes. Even us as human beings, because our particular human personality, if you will, is to like sensual pleasures. And not say sexual, but sensual. So we like things that we like feeling good, and we don't like not feeling good. And when we're talking to our children who like feeling good, we tell them when they start to be teenagers, you have to grow up. Everything is not the way you want it to be, and everything doesn't feel good. Some things don't feel good, but you got to do them. Like you got to get a job, or you have to wash your own clothes, or you have to, and we start trying to acclimate them to unpleasant things, but unless we were like just wicked parents, we have liked to condition them to pleasant things. So we've had our part in disrupting their capacity to understand the nature of their world by giving them everything, doing everything for them, overlooking the things that they do, making excuses for them, not requiring that they steadily grow. And then all of a sudden, they're grown now, and we think they got it, but they don't have it. And so we participate in reinforcing the cycles of ignorance in our children, and especially in our grandchildren. Yeah. And so I'm just trying to give you a bigger picture now, because all worldly Dharma is Buddha Dharma. And while it is fun to think about all of these kinds of things, these spiritual things, it's about really understanding the world system and the nature of samsara. That's what makes one a Buddha, not because we're good people, or not because we praise the Buddha or bow down to holy beings. It's we do those things because of the wisdom and the understanding of the nature of existence that that's the reason why we pay homage to them, because we're really beginning to understand the nature of existence in conditioned reality. And if we're not, all of our bowing, it means absolutely nothing. There's something else for us to do, because we're always trying to find things to do. That's what people do, find things to do and compare and jockey for who knows the most, or why I think my view is right. That's it. But when you start to gain some real seeing, then it doesn't matter as much to you whether a thing feels good or doesn't feel good. When one has clear seeing and clear understanding of it, can feel good or not feel good. The thing is, just want to really know it, have the mastery of it. It's like somebody thinking you are stupid, when you know you're not. How disrespectful it is to assume somebody doesn't know because they are from a certain place, a certain country, certain race, certain background, and the indignation rises up because you know that you are not stupid. So this being a Buddhist is not a religious designation in the way that we think it is, but it's about gaining an understanding of, ergo, a mastery of life itself. And there's nobody who really rates that but you yourself, because only you know your quality of life. Only you really know. People can look from outside and say they know you. They can come up with ways to categorize you and judge you and enneagram you and all of that stuff, you know. But I'm telling you, you can only peg somebody from the space of your own mind. You cannot know them. But as you begin to learn the Dharma, it erases the dullness of the mind. It erases the, I wanted to say forgetfulness, but I've been corrected. It's the have never known. Because once you awaken to your original nature, it is not possible to forget it. So there is an original nature that we have that is perfect in every way. That just has not been realized. And the best way I can help you is for me to realize my own. When I realize my own, then I can make use of some qualities that I have that are not activated because I don't have their address. I don't know where to find them yet. But once I find them, I can pick them up and use them. It's kind of like that. And what if we were all just doing that? What a difference it would make. What if all of our eyes were like just on that? Discovering our own intrinsic nature. This is, we have one nature. We're too busy looking at what the differences are as opposed to the nugget of truth that we've been given, that we are of one nature. Wow. But because we like, in this particular appearance, pleasure, things that make us happy based on other things that have made us happy, we look more at our differences. What if every time we came together, it was like looking in a mirror? First of all, we have to develop some care. You know, we have to like ourselves. We got to like ourselves. And what helps us to like ourselves, because like I know me, I know all my dirty, dastardly secrets. I know when I smile at you what I'm really thinking. And because I know that, and I know that that's not the perfect mark that I ascribe to, but right now I'm just feeling like I need to be this way. That's the best I can do, you know. Then it makes me only be able to offer you what I offer myself. So I'm very shy around people who have low self-esteem because I know they do not have the capacity to be good to me because they can't even be good to themselves or, you know, refuse to be good even to themselves. So that first breaking down is to recognize that we are caught up in something that we didn't create. We are part of a process of coming into existence that continues on different planes in accordance with the disciplines that we set up in our lives and the attributes of goodness that support and sustain ourselves and others. And we know, like, how it makes us feel when we do. We know the contentment of doing good. That's why we know good is good. We know the anguish of suffering when we do things. Like if I'm upset with you, the feeling I feel, you don't feel it. I might want you to feel it. I'm trying to give you some of it, but I got it. It's in me. So I know the burn, or I know the distastefulness of it because it's coming from me. I might be directing it towards you, but it's in me. And we know how that feels. There's very few people who actually feel great joy and peace and satisfaction doing dastardly things to hurt people. I mean, because it has its own quality and you're the one experiencing it. You point it towards me, I can choose to accept it or deflect it. If I accept it, then I got it too. If I deflect it, I don't. So I should deflect it. But it takes development to be able to deflect. It takes discipline of holding to the truth that when I take that in, I'm taking destruction into myself. Therefore, I will refuse it and deflect it. It takes a lot. But once we get into the habit of doing it, we start to see how much better we feel when we don't take offense. It's like, they're so crazy. And just let it go. There was a lady who came out and we were sitting out charging our phones outside of Publix. And she sat down at the table, at the table that I was sitting at, and there was another guy sitting there with his dog, Gracie. And I asked him to watch the phones, and I let him charge into one of my stations because I'm up there with 5 things, so I'm using all the plugs. Well, so I said, like, you can just plug it. I got some extra things you can just plug into mine, and then we struck up a conversation. Then I went inside to the store and I said, "Would you watch my thing?" I said, "Yeah." So while I was gone, she turns to him and says, "Don't forget to vote." And he says, because he tells me the story when I get back. He says, "Oh no, I won't forget, and I'm voting blah blah." Right? Oh no, before that, she gives him $11. And he says, "Oh, I don't need this." And she, because, ain't nobody shaving and stuff like that right now. Well, Kay went to the beauty salon every day to see if it was open. I said, "Kay, they not open, okay?" She said, "Well, I had an appointment. My appointment was for 10 o'clock on Monday." I said, "But Kay, they not open." It's, I said, "Well, I'm going to just ride up there and see because I can't get them on the phone." I said, "Okay, Tuesday." "Well, I wonder if they're there yet. I'm going to just ride up and see Wednesday. I'm going to go by the salon and see if they're there Thursday. I'm going." So, yeah, yeah. So he looked a little rough. We all looking a little scraggly. And so he said, "Ma'am, I don't need any money. I'm really good." She says, "Well, that's all right. You just keep it." Says, "And don't forget to vote." So he says, "I won't, and I'm voting for blah blah." She said, "What? Give me my money back." And she snatched the money and went off, So when I came back, he said, that woman, and he went on to tell me the whole story. And so it's kind of like that. And then we had a good laugh about it. Well, no, because he started talking about, guns should be 1 inch to the left. I said, okay, so we're gonna stop this conversation right now because it's going in a wrong direction. But that's how quickly we can get into some spaces, So we could just discount. You're not going to be able to change everybody's mind. No need to even get mad with them. Doesn't mean like you let them take up all your time, though. If they want to hold that view, you let them hold that view. If somebody doesn't want to come out of some way of thinking, you leave them in it, because the time's not right. That's all. It doesn't mean anything other than the time is not right. And then maybe at another time, you can pick up that conversation, when they may be at wit's end and they really need to hear something that they can hold on to at this moment. But if you've been blah, 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 blah all the time when they weren't willing to hear, it's going to reduce your chances of saying something that they haven't heard that they can suddenly hear and grasp. So sometimes compassion is that. It's not saying what could be useful to say because they ain't trying to hear it. So we're learning how to go deeper. The Buddha master calls it entering into things. He says, and you can enter into something and be very shallow with it, or you can enter it and quickly go to the fullness of it, or you can enter it and go all the way across to the end of it. He said, but all of it is just called entering. Just entering. How wonderful that is. It stops us from comparing. We're constantly comparing. It breaks down that whole thing and you start to get the taste of just one flavor. And we think one flavor is boring, But when it's the right taste, and it's an otherworldly taste, the taste from another realm, all of which we have rights to if we qualify to be in them, through our thoughts, action, and speech, then how wonderful it is. That's why somebody can be going through something, another person going through the same thing. And for one, it's just another day in samsara, and the other has completely lost it. But yes, I'm sorry.
It's so interesting that you say that because current experience and just development along that entering, there's such a sweetness when you recognize that you have come to a space. And then for me, that knowing, not comparing to anyone else, that thief of your own joy, to realize you've taken that step back and then desperately, not shooting the second arrow, but realizing this is where I was, and to have that kind of that dance of forward and back and forward, back. And there's a great joy in recognizing that. I'm not going to say it's a damn great time to recognize that, have taken that step, but to have that level of fruition and know that it's possible in the entering is a real beautiful space of faith and a real opportunity. But just as you were saying that, that's where I realized it's I don't know if anybody in here remembers Paula Abdul, but 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I mean, that's.
I understand what you're saying. And this is where it gets tricky, like just living life is what I use to calibrate my actions. You got to come up with something that works for you. But what I use is when I think I'm doing good, that's when I know I need to be putting forth more effort. And when I don't think I'm doing good, that's when I need to like count. You could say count your blessings. That's when I need to look and see what kind of progress I made, because the ignorant mind, the unawake mind is so tricky. So I'm always looking for the opposite. So when I'm justifying myself, that's when I know That's the trick of the mind. And when I'm not recognizing my progress, that's when I stop. And I just have to look at it and acknowledge the supremacy of the Dharma and its capacity to influence and shift, you know, and shift my own, uproot my ignorance and shift my mind. Uh, and so that's kind of the way that I look at it, whichever way I'm feeling, knowing that I'm prone to liking pleasant and hating and having aversion to anything I don't like, whatever's arising. Right away, the first thing we think about is that we're in harmony with, right? But our work then is instantly to flip the coin and see the other side. That's what creates the balance. That's what allows us to navigate the tightrope. But if we don't, we'll stay one-sided and we'll ultimately fall, and we have to start all over again if we don't kill ourselves. So we're into the tricky part of this practice now. I'm getting ready to end because I wanted to kind of bring this down from a kind of supernatural kind of experience, and keep it right in a real world kind of experience, but express a little more fully what the real world is, and it's more than just what we can see, and more than without being directed as if we're in a dark room. What else there is um, in in this universe, so that we understand where we appear in it, why we appear in it, and what is our way of escape from it, from these gatis to nibbana. So I want to end with one more, and then, because it'll only take me a couple of minutes, and that's to talk a bit about the Abhidhamma. And that's a method of analysis that talks about, it divides all reality into 4 bhumis, or 4 planes. The first is the sense desire plane, sense desire realm, where sensuality, or the realm of sensuality, and it's called the Kama Bhumi. That's the one we're in, right? And it's dominated by the 5 physical senses and thought. Our motivation is for pleasant experience, and we like to avoid the unpleasant. And all beings below the God realm, the realms below the Brahma world, and the Brahma world is the highest world, or the highest realm of the Deva realms. So all beings are in this sensuality realm. But now the Brahmas, or the God realms, they have transcended sensuality. So they are genderless. They don't eat food. They don't have to grow and eat food. They actually feed on bliss. To want something, they create it spontaneously, bringing it into existence rather than having to craft it and make it. And there's 16 levels of those, and including the pure abodes. So when we talk about being in the pure abodes, that's not nibbana. The pure abodes are the top levels of those rupa bhumi. Then there's the arupa, bhumi, and they're also called loka. Loka means world. The arupa loka or the rupa bhumi, and it's no physical body, not fine material, not gross material, no physical body, only mind. Mhm. And because it's only mind, well, mind is not located in space, so it's not spatial, right? And so it's like there's nowhere where um, this mind can be because it's not spatial, it's not physical, it's not physical, and those are bhumis. Now, then the Buddha explains it as appearances as yanis. I'm going to be finished in less than 5 minutes. As yanis. Yanis is manner of birth. So he says there are 4 yanis. The beings that are born of moisture, beings that are born of egg, beings that are born of womb, and beings that are spontaneously born. They're spontaneous appearance. That's why when Brahma had a spontaneous appearance after the ending of one universe and the emergence of the next universe, and he says as that spontaneous birth, and he says, "I am the first one. I am the first one." We call the first one God. He says, "I am the first one." So there's the whole teachings, and then you don't have to investigate all these teachings. Just know that they exist, and that there was thought put to this. We didn't just fashion a cartoon story and throw it out there. That there's a whole complex, system that surrounds this that you may know nothing about. Therefore, you just hear a line and say, "Oh, I don't believe that." Or hear a line over here and say, "Oh, that doesn't make sense," because you haven't investigated it. There's a whole lot of stuff that makes sense if you can penetrate it. But if you can't, it won't make sense. And we have that just in our regular, ordinary world, is what I'm saying. See, I can't penetrate algebra. It just does not make sense. It makes sense to some people, and they use it for something. What, I don't know. But and so there is this. I just want to say to you that we just didn't sit down and write fictional stories. I'm saying that there is a whole uh, intricate, and vast books of knowledge around how things have come into being that we're just discovering through today's science and technologies are true because we can verify them now, 2,500 years or 3,000 or 5,000 years later, because some of this is 5,000 years old. Um, I think that's where I want to stop, because it speaks of, if you went into each one of these teachings, it rounds out our notion of the universe, taking it from a flat 2D perspective and understanding to something that's very rich, that has length, it has width, it has breadth, it has depth, it has height, it has volume. That's what I'm saying. It's not just some fairy tale stories that says, "Oh, I don't need any of that. Just give me a little bit of meditation here." And that's all I need. You need to know that it's couched in something. And without having a frame of reference, you'll never penetrate to what it has the capacity to bring forth in you, that you can discover your original nature. So I know this wasn't exciting kind of stuff that we can philosophize around, but I want to try to lay a foundation because you need it to be able to understand this. Yes.
My mind naturally gravitates toward creating different realms of samsara on the kind of a stack for it. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of interpenetration of one realm with another. I mean, I look at things that we see, like lure and orthodox, all of this kind of stuff, not to mention Gaza. It certainly looks like a hell realm to me.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's why they approach it from different perspectives. This was just one perspective that deals with physicality. It goes into other aspects of the world system that's not just physical. That's what I'm saying. And that once you put all these together, you no longer have just a physical understanding of the world, but you start seeing the interpenetration. Most of our ideas are wrong because we are taught to understand things in a linear fashion. That's why some of the things the Buddha Master says gets confusing, because he'll talk about a bodhisattva and then he'll say, like a bodhisattva is not perfect. You're like, wait, what? What? Or the reason why they're here. And you say, no, because the bodhisattva's right there and I'm right here, and so we can't really penetrate it because we have things stacked in this kind of linear fashion and some just make believe out of this world. But when you start to see like a Rubik's Cube and you start turning and twisting until it all starts to come together, but you have to know it to put it all together, and most of us don't have any interest in anything other than that because we think it's just this and it's more than just this.
Thank you. Because I've always wondered about the hell realm, this realm, this realm, this realm, this realm. And at the same time, there's Mother Teresa and Gandhi in this life, and then there's the serial killers and so on this life. So I'm thinking now, rather than a wall, a box that each realm is in, emptiness and form and emptiness, it's all one. There's no walls between it.
Well, the ignorance is the wall. The ignorance is the wall.
But we have,
and it has to be dismantled. So it has to be it gets dismantled block by block. You just don't look and go blink and the wall is gone. The wall has to be dismantled. And so the language prajna is for the purpose of dismantling, and to dismantle, you have to use what's not exactly right. It's like, for example, to help you get the real idea. We'll say to get the idea of something, say, for example, and you use an analogy. But the analogy allows you to really understand it. But the analogy is not the real thing, and it's not the right thing. So that's the fallacy of using words, but without words, nobody would get anywhere, And so you have to see the what's the word I'm looking for? The limitations. You have to see the limitations of words. But when we want to change something, we want to change everything. So first we saw it like linear. Now we see, like maybe it's not linear at all. So we dismantle linear. So now we can't use linear anymore. Where actually some things are step by step. Some things really are linear, but it doesn't have to be only linear. But it's either linear or it's not.
You can guess that too.
Yes, it's like that. But you see how fixed we are. If it's not this, then it's this. But he's constantly talking about it's this and this. He says, you know what? As a matter of fact, it's neither this nor this. But how are you going to get to neither this nor this if you haven't gotten to this and this, if you haven't gotten to at least this, And so that's the difficulty of all of this. And this is about us like just breaking down and being open to getting things, and within our own self, according to karmic forces, things start to rectify and become clear within ourselves. So it's good to hear things, and you don't have to judge it. Just hear it. That's all. And then later something comes and connects with that. Next week, next month, next year. Oh, I remember when I thought about that. This now explains that for me, and that's how we will come to the fullness of the measure of our stature as an awakened one. And so it's a great journey. Yes.
Could our mind possibly go to like all 6 realms in one day?
Could it go to 6 realms? A mind could go to 6 realms. Could a particular mind, you can get into a certain realm without having a certain
Right.
kind of
If
mind.
you already
So
have,
that's a yes and a no.
yeah, okay,
Not with this.
right, so let's, like, I could go to animal, ghost, and hell maybe, because I've already been there, probably, maybe, I don't know. But, so it'd be easier to go back to those, so my mind could visit those places.
Yeah.
But it'd be harder to go to God.
But that depends on your development.
Right,
I mean, some of us in our minds, we're in a hell realm all the time,
right,
or we're in an animal realm. And that's a way of doing a psychological thing. But I'm going to tell you, for those who have penetrated the nature of reality, they can shapeshift and they can become that animal, or they can move into a David realm, and that's not a psychological realm, that's actual realm. Was that your question? Okay. Yes.
I appreciate it. Sorry. I appreciate the fact that you read the open because you're not saying like we're like, oh yeah, it's a book and like you delete it. You're saying, no, like I'm offering you an invitation to pull apart the things that you're in so you can actually experience. And once you do, the way you're holding reality, and now, just to let that right start to begin to resonate with you deeper and deeper. It's like the tonal bell of the reality. What's really right now? I know you told, I was thinking about this morning, I was like, you told us such a brilliant time that we have to be willing to let go and what we think we know.
Yeah.
So if you think that this way, I'm saying you're trying to figure it all out, in mind, but it doesn't want. You're just letting, I feel like you're getting to the space where you're like, they really. So we like the echo of the under the street begin to wash over you. What place where I'm really willing to surrender and then see where it's applying. Just to search yourself adapted because everything and then to understand how fortunate you are to not have a book, but to have a transmission. Like, I was thinking the other day, like, about how we read this. Like, are you just kind of laid down on the couch? Are you sitting at a desk holding it like it's an academic thing? Are you entering it into it like it's a ceremony in the seat of the cosmos itself? Like it's vast, it's really deep, it's hard to yeah, that's all.
Or are you just listening and constantly judging as you're listening? Like that, don't like that. I don't believe that. Are you constantly analyzing? He's saying, do not analyze. because the mind that's analyzing is the one that's not going to be able to perceive it as it is. Don't analyze. But it can dawn on you if you don't analyze. And that's why I say sometimes just listen. And then he even says, forget about it. Just hear it and then forget about it. And later on, something will come together for you in a way that's useful for you, that's not analyzing, Yeah. Okay, I think that's where I wanna end right now. Next week, what I want to do is take 7 or 8 critical areas of the Dharma and try to tie them together. That would be, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. We could say the conditionality, or the conditioned and unconditioned reality. All of these things, like we talk about emptiness, but he's just talking about the unconditioned, and saying that in this world, everything is conditioned. Everything is formed of other things. That's all. Everything is formed of other things. And so if you really got that, I mean, just really, really, really got that, then you could see that you could fully understand what impermanence is, that everything is formed of something else, and that it doesn't last forever. It breaks down. It goes back to its original component. So there's going to be unsatisfactoriness because there is nothing that lasts, and we like things that we like to last. And so there's going to be, suffering in that sense. And what uproots the suffering doesn't mean that some things are hard for us or that we don't go through some kind of tribulation. What uproots that suffering from us is the expectation of things lasting. So then if we could immediately accept when something falls apart, then that's natural, like, dang, bad timing. But, then then the suffering wouldn't be there, even though everything is impermanent. So it's not because really things are impermanent that it's suffering, but because we want things to be permanent that they're suffering, And so that's how easily we can shift, And so I just want to kind of tie all of this together because it's a billion different teachings, but you can just roll them into a very few. And if you can just hold that, then the kind of peace they said that passes all understanding, that we wouldn't have to be afraid of. We could enjoy the bliss of the acceptance of impermanence. I mean, really, not just BS talking, but really, really, in our deepest parts, it would be a game changer in your everyday life. Yeah. Somebody offer up merit for our listening today.
If there be any merit to all our thoughts, words, and actions, to what we're learning, what we're motivated to move toward in all our practice, may it be divided among all living beings in all six realms equally. And may they all increase their fortune with wisdom and always have peace and auspicious.
Okay, so last thing I just want to say really quickly, and I'll start with this next week, is why it's important then to understand jhana, what jhana is, and how to enter jhana. Because when the mind enters into certain jhana, it corresponds with certain planes. It corresponds with certain planes. So don't think of planes just merely as action, and it can be all move around. It is also linear in terms of spaciousness and clear seeing. And by when a mind is entered into a certain plane or certain jhana, then upon the breaking apart of this physical body, whatever kind of body you have, then it's the next place of rebirth has to do with the mind state, the mind, the plane of the mind. And so the jhanas correspond to different planes. And I think of all of the instigation to not realize truth, the most egregious to me is around what meditation is and what meditation is not, because that has to do with the state that one enters upon the breaking up of this body. Of course, it has use in this body, but I'm talking about in terms of getting out of samsara, off the cycle, has to do with your jhanic attainment. And so if you don't understand what it is, you'll never be entering into it. And so I'd like to bring some clarity around that. Thank you.